Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girvardhari Yashodananda Rajajanaranjana Yashodananda Rajajanaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Hare Krishna. Oh, here. No, okay. It's a bit big. Let's give it to the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Om Vishnavada Paramahansa Parivajikacharishtatera Sata Shri Shimad Chidandi Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnavada Paramahansa Parivajikacharishtatera Sata Shri Shimad Chidandi Goswami Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Govina Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantha Raj Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, I have the right verse. This is very interesting. When I last gave class, I think it was the last time I gave class, must have been, on this same chapter. I read ahead and was looking at the verses and somehow reflecting on that there was something in this verse, and I said, so well, I hope I didn't say I pity, but I certainly I'm very hopeful for the person who has to give a talk on this verse, because I don't understand it at all. And I hope I said I'm glad I'm not the one who has to give a class on this verse. Hare Krishna. Now it's come. We'll do what we can, but very fortunately, this also happens to be, for me at least, and for all of us, this happens to also be the disappearance day of Shamananda Prabhu. So we will try to discuss this verse somewhat, and then we will talk about Shamananda. And I don't claim to understand Shamananda Prabhu either, but at least I have some idea. So, did we chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? We did. Okay, so let's chant the verse. It's Canto 3, Chapter 12, Text 49. And it's a very unusual verse. You can see, first of all, it's just 2 lines. So it's unusual in that way. And then what the verse says and what Srila Prabhupada says, these are all very unusual. So anyway, here we go. Tato paramupadaya sasargaya manodhade tato paramupadaya sasargaya manodhade tato paramupadaya sasargaya manodhade. Others? Tato param upadaya sasargaya manodhade. Tato param upadaya sasargaya manodhade. Tato param upadaya sasargaya manodhade. Ladies. Tato param upadaya sasargaya manodhade. Synonyms. Tataha, thereafter. Aparam, another. Upadaya, having accepted. Soho, he. Sargaya, in the matter of creation. Manoha, mind. Dade, gave attention. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, Brahma accepted another body. in which sex life was not forbidden. And thus, he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. Purport. In his former body, which was transcendental, affection for sex life was forbidden. And Brahma therefore had to accept another body to allow himself to be connected with sex. He thus engaged himself in the matter of creation. His former body transformed into fog, as previously described. Om Ajnanatam Landasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshumutam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Kam Karoti Bhaktam Bangaladaya Kripatamaham Vande Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. So perhaps you can understand my trepidation on this verse. To begin with, well, the particular trepidation that I had is Brahma's former body was transcendental. What does that mean? It was a transcendental body, but it had forbidden sex urges, and then it transformed into fog. Okay. Perhaps you can all understand my dilemma here. I don't understand this. I searched for some revelation about this by going to the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Sarartha Dipika. He's given a full commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been translated into English. There I found perhaps a hint, but it was the opposite of what is being described here. That the former body was not transcendental, and that the body that he accepted, which was described as Shabda Brahma. Anyhow, I got even more confused. So then I tried to look for Jiva Goswami and see, did he speak about this? But he doesn't give a commentary on this verse. I looked for a commentary of Sridhar Swami's commentary, but that's not been translated into English from any source that I know of. So I'm at a loss. So I beg the forgiveness of all of the devotees here for my total inability to give any further enlightenment on this particular verse. So then my wife suggested, well, it's a short purport. Why don't we go further? We can read the further verses. And now I'll proclaim again, and I hope it doesn't come back to me, that I get the verses that come, because the next verses are without purports. And then it ends up in a verse where it describes how Brahma creates two beings somehow, and it's not, the purport there says that how he does this is bewildering. And one has got a mustache and the other has got large breasts. And yet they're described as Kayam, but because they're also mysterious. And somehow they become Manu and Satarupa, and then they begin everything. So all I can say is that the process of creation in this material world is very mysterious. Very, very mysterious. And I also extend my great sympathies to the ISKCON scientists who are given this task of explaining the process of creation as given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I will make one comment on that, because that I know, I have a little hint that how that might happen. and how all of this may be understood. We have some hints from Sadaputa's work, first of all, in the cosmology. He has written a book on Vedic cosmology, in which he reconciles the explanation or the description of the solar system in the Surya Siddhanta, which is accepted as being Vedic. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote commentaries on this and is used by all of the Vedic astrologers. And the description of our solar system that is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, with Bhu, Mandala, and various Varshas, and so on. So there what we find is that Sadaputta has used a analysis by which he takes words to have different meanings in different contexts. And by juxtaposition and explanations of how words are being used, he is able to reconcile the different meanings of words in different contexts. So there's the context of the Surya Siddhanta, where things like orbit and so on are used. And then there's the context of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the same words are used, but they're used from different perspectives. And by taking different perspectives and so on, you can reconcile it all. So in other words, language, the various meanings in language are one way to reconcile what otherwise becomes difficult to understand. So in other words, when we hear here the term transcendental, when Srila Prabhupada uses the term what is being transcended? Transcendental means to transcend. It's transcendental, meaning it has transcended something. So what exactly was this body of Brahma transcending? Maybe and here, because now that's why I have to apologize, because I have to enter into speculation. I cannot explain this. I don't have any. I looked for the acharyas to see if I could find any explanation. I didn't find anything. So now I can only speculate. Srila Prabhupada did describe this kind of speculation, as he said, he called it philosophical speculation as opposed to mental speculation. He used to deride mental speculation as being that exercise of the mind where there's no foundation. It's simply you and your mind and other people's minds and so on, and just, speculating and trying to come up with something. Here, at least, we have some foundation. We have the scripture itself. We have Srila Prabhupada's words. We have other contexts. And now we can do some little philosophical speculation to try to understand it. That's what Srila Prabhupada said, that philosophical speculation was the process of understanding scripture by applying one's intelligence and one's reasoning power. So in that way, I can speculate that the transcendental, this kind of transcendence is not the spiritual transcendence that we speak of, the transcendental body. Obviously, this could not, the former body that Brahma gave up and became fog was not a body that we find in Goloka. How could that be? The bodies of the jivas, the truly, fully, absolute transcendental bodies that you and I, we all must one day enter. Those bodies, those minds, those intellects will be and are so pure, so fully pure, that the possibility of lusting after one's daughter would be impossible. So, again, I can only speculate that the transcendental quality of that former body had something to do with its inability to, or well, what Prabhupada says is that it was a body in which sex life was forbidden. Okay, so now this again gives a little bit of a hint. There's some sort of body that fits this qualification. So here's the homework. All of the scholars out there in YouTube land and Facebook land or wherever, come up with a solution to this purport, and you'll get a prize. We have garlands, we have Mahapashad. You have to come here, of course, to get it. So enough on my speculations and the difficult verse. Let's enter into something which I do know something about, because there's much more written, and that is the glorious, glorious life of Shamananda Prabhu. So I do have to take help. My memory is not so good. So, but we are very fortunate that we have these devices, and they help us out tremendously. So we begin with this one does not tell us when he appeared, but we know that Shamananda Prabhu, was born in Orissa, and his father, Sri Krishna Mandal, unfortunately had many sons and daughters, but they all died in childbirth. They all died in childbirth. So when Shamananda was born, his father, this is a sort of a tradition in India, at least in Bengal, I think I've seen it, that when there's to prevent or to kind of prevent bad things happening, a bad name will be given to the child. So the child's name was Dukhi, sadness. So with hope that this child would live and not create sadness, the name itself of sadness was given. So he was Dukhi. So Dukhi was a great devotee. He was extraordinarily attractive. He was extraordinarily intelligent. In his Gurukula, he learned scriptures so easily, and he was so attracted to Krishna. And then he became very intent on initiation, on being accepted by a devotee as his disciple. Somehow he had heard and came to know about Hridaya Chaitanya and Gauridas Pandit, two associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. Now their story is also very, very wonderful. Their deities of Gaur Nitai are still there in Ambika Kalna. And it is said that these deities were personally given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he desired to be initiated, to accept Hridaya Chaitanya as his guru. But Hridaya Chaitanya is in Navadvip, in that area, and he's down in Orissa. And of course, this is before the trains and planes and roads and so on. So it's a long ways, and he's a young boy, young man at least. So his father was quite reserved. But finally, he relented and yes, okay. And he did. He traveled. He came to Ambika Kalna. He inquired, and he met Hriday Chaitanya, who was immediately taken by the extraordinary quality of Duki, and said, now, so he asked, what is your name? I am Duki. Now from now on, you are Krishna Das. So he became known as Duki Krishna Das, because there's quite a few Krishna Dasas. And subsequently, he was initiated. So he became fully absorbed in Guru Bhakti and serving Hriday Chaitanya so blissfully. And one day, Hriday Chaitanya, observing the intelligence of young Krishnadas, directed him, now you go to Vrindavan. You study the scriptures. You study with Sri Jiva Goswami. And with some regret, because Krishnadas was very attached to his service to Hriday Chaitanya, he did proceed and arrived in Vrindavan. Came before Jiva Goswami, who again asks, who are you? And he explains who he is. At that time, or near about that time, he was joined with two other great devotees who they became a threesome. That is Narottam Das and Srinivasacharya. So they became great friends, and they were studying with Sri Jiva in great joy. And then comes the extraordinary pastime of Krishnadas becoming Shamananda. This is such an extraordinary story. So Krishnadas, he had a great desire to do some personal service for Jiva. And Jiva gave him a small task. As we know, Jiva Goswami resided in the area of Vrindavan, very close to what we know as Sevakunj, which is understood to be the Rasastali of Radha and Krishna. Our Srila Prabhupada also resided in the temple of Radha Damodar, where Jiva Goswami worshipped Radha Damodar. So he gave Krishnadas the simple job of collecting some water from the kund, or perhaps it was a well. I think it was actually a well that was located in the Sevakunj. And every day he would go and do this and feel, and sometimes he would see some very, very attractive village girls also doing the same thing. Anyway, he had great joy in this service. And one day, he looks down in the well and sees this shining bangle, picks it up, and starts to feel great emotion, ecstatic emotion. Tied to the bangle is like a piece of cloth. He's feeling so, what is this? He's not understanding what's going on. But he thinks, someone has lost this, I should return it. Now I'm going to turn to this story as related in this place because it's so wonderfully told. In this particular story, version of the story, it speaks about how he would clean Seva Kunj. And it also speaks how he was feeling great ecstasy, remembering the Leela of Krishna. And that he actually observed, this is, I'm not sure where this particular version of the story comes, but in this version, it says that in his dream or in his ecstasy, in his meditation, not dream, but in his meditation, he observes that an anklet slips from the feet of Radharani. Anyway, yes, so then it was a dream. And he goes to, and I'll just read. Dukhi Krishna woke up and as usual left for cleaning the Seva Kunj. On reaching the place of the pastime, he noticed more signs of merrymaking as compared to previous days. So he saw something's been going on here. Creepers laid scattered here and there. And he could see footprints. He became very ecstatic. And then he saw a glittering object. Now here it says it was under a pomegranate tree. In the other story, it says it was in the well. So I'm not sure which one it is. And in this story, here's a prophecy to guard the anklet. So now he thinks that this is something very extraordinary. During this time, Srimati Radharani came to that place in disguise with her associates in search of the anklet. She hid behind a creeper and asked Lalita Sakhi to look for the anklet. Sri Lalita Sakhi, in the disguise of a poor old Brahmin lady, approached Krishna Das and told him that the previous night her newly married daughter-in-law had come to that place to pluck flowers. But having seen a lion, Krishna, standing next to her, she left the place in fear. At that time, an anklet from her left foot had slipped and fell on the ground. She inquired from him whether he had found it. Hearing these words, Krishnadas felt satisfied, but showered a list of questions. Who was she? Where did she live? Kindly give her introduction to my complete satisfaction. Lalita Sakhi, she is Kanya Kubja Brahmin lady and belongs to a village near Yavat. So in this way, the conversation goes. And you can read this. I'm not going to take all the time here because we have little time. But as the pastime unfolds, then the conversation becomes gradually revealed to Krishnadas. He's still now Krishnadas, that this is Sri Radha. When I was reading this, I was trying to imagine. I can't imagine, but I was trying to just imagine what it would be like to be in that time. Not in this time that we're in, where we have little bells ringing and we have noise outside of construction work and we're just, immersed in this jungle of New York. To be in a place, to be in Vrindavan in the 16th century. This is before the reign of Aurangzeb. This is the great time of the Goswamis. Such an amazing time. And what it must have been like for Krishnadas to be there, so absorbed in Krishna Leela. And what it must have been like to have this full darshan. This is not a dream that Krishnadas is experiencing. This is not a meditation. He's Radha, Sri Radha is there in front of him. Lalita is there. They're there. He's there. How he could even speak, I don't know. How he could, but by their energy, he's fixed, and he engages in a leela with them, with asking questions, and finally the anklet comes back into Sri Radha's hands, and Sri Radha takes that anklet and presses it into kumkum. Let's see where the kumkum comes. Let's see. So actually, of course, up till then, these the Radha and Sri, they're actually sort of in disguise. I mean, they look like village girls. It's as if, you know, you're sitting there and some people come in and they're really, really beautiful, but they're still appear to be like you and I. So now Krishnadas says, now I want to see your full transcendental form. And he receives that transcendental vision by which he can see them fully as they are in Goloka. And he actually is taken to Radha Kund. He's given the form of a manjari, and he comes back, and there's this and Sri Radha takes this anklet and puts it on his head. So as soon as Lalita Shaki touched his forehead with the anklet, his tilak was converted into the transcendental tilak of the shape of Srimati Radharani's foot. Srimati Radharani took kumkum, sandal, and camphor that had adorned her body, mixed them with honey, and rubbed them on a stone known as Chandrakant. And with the help of the front part of the anklet, she drew a bright round mark in between the Nupur tilak on the forehead of Krishnadas. This new tilak adorning the forehead of Krishnadas will be known as Sham Mohan tilak, and this Saki upon whom Srimati Radharani has showered her blessings, in view of this, he will be known as Shamananda. He's also Kanak Manjari, Vishaka Dasi says. So this is the wonderful pastime. But now what happens? He's told by Lalita, you can't tell this to anyone. This is only for you. Only Jiva, he can hear. So he returns and explains everything to Jiva. And Jiva, of course, is overwhelmed that his student, Krishnadas, now Shamananda, and he says, now you will be known as Shamananda. But now this mysterious transformation has taken place. This disciple of Hriday Chaitanya has become, now he's got this tilak, this new tilak. And you know how tilak is in our sampradayas. We have our tilak, right? Our tilak is like this. That's our tilak. And there's Sri Sampradaya, they have another kind of tilak with And then there's the Ramananda, they have their tilak. So there's, I don't know how many dozens of tilaks there are that are the distinguishing marks of your sampradaya. This is your sampradaya tilak. You don't give up your sampradaya tilak. It's the same way you don't give up your mantras. You don't give up your name. He's got a name too. His name is Krishnadas. Now he's got a new name, Shamananda. Word gets back to Hridaya Chaitanya. He's thinking, what's going on here? He's maybe Jiva Goswami has given him, what's going on? He actually gets very angry. And he thinks this is an offense. This will be the ruin of Krishnadas. He had so much Guru Bhakti. What is he doing? Something must be terribly wrong. I have to go and I have to chastise him, correct him. And he goes to Vrindavan. And he meets Krishnadas, now Shamananda, and he sees he's got this new tilak, he's got this new name. And he chastises him. In some versions, he beats him up. He's just so angry. He says, you have to learn your lesson. This is terrible offense. You will never progress in spiritual life if you offend your guru in this way. You have to be, this is, Ado, Shraddha, Guru Bhakti is so important. But Krishna said, no. But as he's doing this, he's experiencing something strange. This is not, he's feeling the ecstasy from Shamananda. And let me go to the other story. Let me get back here. So, that's what happened. So that night, Sri Hridaya Chaitanya Prabhu had a dream. This is how things get resolved. So first he's angry. But now it gets revealed. He has a dream, and Sri Radha comes. So Sri Radha comes to Hridaya Chaitanya in his dream and says, because Sri Dukhi Krishnadas has pleased me greatly, I have given him this new name and tilak. Why have you instructed him differently? Hridaya Chaitanya fell at the feet of the princess of Vraja, praying for forgiveness, realizing that he had committed a great offense. So all's resolved. Of course, the details are hidden. How it all happened, only Jiva knows. And of course, Shamananda. But now the tension with Hridaya Chaitanya is removed. Shamananda then enters into the next phase of his life, which we'll speak just a little bit about. Shamananda, as we mentioned, was very, very close with Narottam and Srinivas. And together they became a team. And they were instructed to proceed and preach, to start the Sankirtan, to start ISKCON in one way. Right? We've heard, and this is a detail that I don't have full information of, but we know that during this time of the Goswamis, and I think it's Jiva, but I don't know. Does anybody know who founded the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha? Is it Sanatan, either Sanatan Rupa or Jiva? I'm not quite sure who came up with the terminology, Vishwa Vaishnava Raja Sabha, who began the coming together of our sampradaya into a community. And then these three individuals, Srinivas, Narottam, and Shamananda, they became the first acharyas to spread the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in an organized way. So as most of us have heard, they left Vrindavan with copies which may have been the only copies of the literatures, or at least they were very, very, special. They only got one copy because this is before, photocopy machines and so on. So hand copied versions of the Goswamis' literature were carried by them in bundles. And I won't go into the whole story of how they were stolen by the king in Bihar. Bihar is known for its kind of rough and ready nature sometimes. They were stolen. Srinivas stayed behind in order to recover, to try to recover them, and which he did successfully after some time. And Narottam proceeded to Kaituri, his in what is now East Bengal or Bangladesh, that area. And Shamananda came first to Hriday Chaitanya. He came back to Ambika Kalna, where he resumed his service to Hriday Chaitanya in great ecstasy. I mean, there was some mission but the shastras were not there. The mission to propagate these and to share these with the devotees was what to do. So he just stayed with his guru. But at some point, I think Hriday Chaitanya did hear that they had recovered the shastras, but he also heard about the state of the devotees, or the state of Mahaprabhu's mission in Orissa, and felt great desire that this be rectified. And so he saw in Shamananda the solution. He sent Shamananda back to Orissa. Shamananda proceeded to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya and to preach the worship of Gaur Nityananda all over Orissa. Even to today, people are everywhere in Orissa can be traced. Their devotion for Gaur Nitai can be traced to Shamananda. So Shamananda became the leading figure of the movement in Orissa. Narottam became the leading figure of the movement along with Srinivas in Bengal. And then we all come together in Kaituri for the first Gaur Purnima festival. Janava is still present. She is the actual acharya for the whole sampradaya at the time. And everyone comes to Kaituri, and then the wonderful Kaituri Leela takes place. So these are just some thoughts about Shamananda. I wish I were more educated, more knowledgeable. I think that there are books on Shamananda. I encourage everyone to read, learn more. But for us, we can take back with us perhaps a little, a little bit of meditation on the extraordinary experience of Shamananda and how Krishna works in this world. How the spiritual world can enter into our world and transform us. Perhaps not in the extraordinary way that Shamananda experienced, but in just small ways, we can experience how the spiritual world, which is just there, it's not far away, it's just with us. And when we chant the holy names of Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it enters in. Golokera Premadan, Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam descends to us from the spiritual world. We may not see Radha and Krishna or an anklet, but we hear them. And if we can open ourselves up more and more, then they will reveal themselves more and more in sound and eventually to our vision. Hare Krishna. Any comments, additional comments on Shamananda or questions? No? Yes. No, no. It's a different tilak. First of all, there's a red dot. In the shape of her foot. And our is these two lines, and this is supposed to, we consider this to be like Tulsi. So that's a good question. I don't know fully how it's a worthy topic to investigate. The our tilak and how it whether the tilak, even whether the tilak that Srila Chaitanya gave was the same as, I don't know. And anyway, I didn't have time to. I'm sure there probably is some Shamananda tilak pictures. We'll have to look at it. Let's see. I got my computer here. Okay, let's see if I find anything. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, I know what I'm holding the keyboard on my hand, and it's instead of okay, let's try it this way. All right, there's something wrong with my computer. Every time I do a type S, it tries to save something. Okay, we'll look it up and we'll find out. Smarhari, yeah. He's a scholar. Oh, okay. Yeah, a tilak map. Okay, good, good. All right, thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shamananda Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare.